to a woman's right to do what she wants. But I'm too excited and I want to hear him talk. So, ladies and gentlemen, the next governor of the great state of Texas!
All right, Patty. Clarksville, thank you for having us out. It is an honor to be with you here today. And I'm going to take something that Patty just said as our operating system going forward in this campaign and a hope in this state. And that is, we got to fight for hope. You know, sometimes hope is expressed as a passive thing. Like, I hope it gets better. I hope that this changes. I hope someone will ride into the rescue and save us at the end of the day. I don't think there's anything wrong with hope. In fact, it's a very necessary thing at this moment where so much is on the line. So many people are literally under attack in their own state, their own country, in this very democracy right now. We need hope, but even more, we need to fight for that hope, work to bring it to pass by doing what's necessary to win this election. If you want to help us out by the end of this meeting, there are folks here in these yellow vests who will take your name and connect you with an opportunity to knock on the doors of your neighbors, to make phone calls, to even write letters if that's what you're most comfortable doing. But human to human, person to person, connect with the people who are going to decide the outcome of this next election. That is putting hope into action. Action is the antidote to despair, and it is the key to victory. So let us have hope, but let us fight for it, like Patty said. Thank you. I just asked Cynthia from my team, and if you all know anything about our team, she leads our team, to welcome in any protesters who are outside. It's warm out there. We want them to come in, at least under these fans, right? And make sure that they're comfortable. We also, this is a conversation, this is a discussion, and as Patty said, we welcome you as a Democrat, we welcome you as an independent, we welcome you as a Republican as well. All of us, before we're any of those things, we're Texans, we're Americans, and we're human beings. We're going to treat each other that way with the respect that we each deserve, right? And that includes for anybody who, after I'm going to make a short set of comments here, anybody who would like to speak, even if you have a question that you think doesn't fit with the rest of the crowd, or you have a criticism that you want to make, we're here to hear you. I have no hope of effectively serving this community as governor if I haven't first shown up to listen to the people that I want to deliver for. And it cannot just be the people who are for me, that agree with me, that have come to the same conclusions as I have. It's got to be all of us. Part of the problem that we have in this state and in our country right now is that we are selecting the people that we're going to work for and then telling them, you got to be afraid and you got to hate everybody else. We even have politicians, and listen, this happens on both sides of the aisle, whatever party happens to be in power, who are choosing their own voters instead of the other way around. You know how this gerrymandering works at the state representative and congressional level? The number one imperative for every one of those men and women who serve in these high offices is not to fix the rural health care problem or extend broadband, internet, or invest in the infrastructure of your communities. It is to get reelected. And when we allow them to choose who their voters are going to be in this next election, that means that there is no contest, no fight, no ability to earn your vote. They don't have to show up here. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, if Greg Abbott has shown up for a town hall meeting here in Clarksville to take your questions, to find out what's on your mind, to go visit that shuttered hospital that closed down in 2013. It's just the bare bones and the skeleton of what it had been every year from 1976 until that day. Well, I was just out there with one of the nurses who gave the best years of her life to this community. Irene talked about going to work in that hospital on its first day in 1976, working all the way through till 2013, caring for the patients who came in, You were out at your deer blind, you accidentally shot yourself in the foot and the leg, you brought yourself in. She said that happened more than once. She was there to take care of you. Even though they didn't have obstetrics, sometimes there were emergency deliveries. She was there for them as well. You might have been passing through town and you started to feel those contractions. She was there to meet you at the door. You were boiling that pig in that grease vat, right? And you drank a little bit too much beer and you slipped into it and you got burned up. She said that happened not once, but many times in this community. She was there for you as well. Meeting Irene, listening to her stories, knowing that she's not looking for a handout. She doesn't want anybody to come in and save her or this community. She wants to make sure that those in positions of public trust know what's most important to Clarksville, and that together we partner and fight for this community, for the young people who are here, and for the parents and the grandparents of the young people who are here, and the young people who've moved to Dallas, Fort Worth, who've moved to Austin, who've moved to New York, who've moved somewhere else. I want you to hear me right now. I've got 3 kids that Amy, my wife, and I are raising in El Paso. The oldest is starting his sophomore year at El Paso High School on Monday. We start our school year a little early in El Paso. His sister started her freshman year on Monday. Their little brother is starting his 6th grade, year 1st of middle school, also on Monday. Pretty soon, they're going to be making a decision about whether they're going to stay in El Paso or if they're going to find opportunity and adventure, something exciting, somewhere else. Amy and I, and every one of our fellow El Pasoans who's paid taxes into the school district, into the city, into the county, to make sure they get a great education, that we have nice museums, that the street lights work, that the grass is cut at the parks. We all want to make sure, after pouring all that love, all that money into them, that that investment produces a return in El Paso, not anywhere else. I know you feel the same way about Red River County and Clarksville. And I've looked at the census numbers over time. There was 3 times the population in this very community 100 years ago. In 1920, every single year it's declined. Tell me how hard it is to keep families here in this community when your hospital's been closed down for more than 8 years, when your teachers are underpaid by $16,500 a year against the national average, not against the highest paid teacher in America. That would be measured maybe in the tens of thousands of dollars, but $16,500 down. How do we keep her on the roll in front of those kids in that classroom when she can't see a hospital? She has to drive to Paris, Texas in order to be able to do that. She has not shown the respect that she deserves, that she's earned by paying her enough so she doesn't have to work a second or a third job to make ends meet. We have failed to listen to her when she says, hey folks, I don't need another high pressure, high stakes test for these kids in my classroom. I'm trying to keep them alive. I'm going to come here, accountable to her. We don't lack. Our economy is large. It's the of the planet today. Legislature is billion resources we lack together. One job. Right here in Clarksville. 2, we're going to listen to her on this high stakes, high pressure test and cancel the star and replace it with something that we're going to appoint a TEA commissioner who is a classroom teacher, so she knows what it's like to deliver education to kids in communities like this one in Clarksville. For those retired teachers, we're going to make sure after almost 18 years without a cost of living adjustment. The last one was in 2004. That we increase that every single year going forward. We can be Republicans, we can be Democrats, we can be independents. We're all for public school educators, those counselors, those librarians, those teachers. That is not something that I will allow us to be
divided on. It's just too important. We're going to find a way to come together. And look, it doesn't even matter to me if you vote for the other guy in this election. No me importa. My responsibility, my obligation, my sworn duty as your governor is to serve all of us equally under the law. And you heard Karen right here say, all of our communities are not receiving resources equally. In fact, with this reservoir proposal, they're talking about taking our farms and our land up here in Northeast Texas to provide for another part of the state. That's not our function. That's not our purpose in life. That's not why we are here as a community in Clarksville right now. We're here to look after one another and ourselves. Irene told me, in fact, that hospital that went up in 1976, the state didn't pay for it. You all paid for it. Your parents and your grandparents literally funded every single room. She worked there every day, and she told me every one of those 80 rooms, Irene told me, has a name from somebody in the community who pitched in and made sure that we can fund what we need here right now. These schools, you all have already stepped up. I just talked to Hunter a second ago. This blows my mind, and he's now my inspiration and spirit animal in life, because he told me that he helped to register 60 new voters in Red River County ahead of the bond election to fund our public schools last year. He registered 60 people. That bond issue passed by 59 votes. That was a marginal victory. You all dug in, pitched in, funded those classrooms, even though the state of Texas has failed to do its fair share. In the good old days, back when that hospital was going up in 76, the local to state ratio of public school funding was 50-50. You know, the state puts in $1, you all put in $1. I think that's pretty fair. Today, you put in 60 cents, the state puts in 40 cents. So when your school board trustees want to talk about raising the salary of the teachers, they got to go to you to talk about raising your property taxes. Your property taxes are already too high. They've gone up $20 billion since Greg Abbott has taken office. That's a 40% increase. Your utility bills, after we could not keep the lights on and the heat running and the water flowing in the energy capital of the world last February when the temperature dropped, your utility bills have gone up $45 a month on average. It's getting harder to afford to stay here. So the state of Texas needs to step up. We need to do our part for Clarksville, for this community, and for these teachers. I'm going to follow the lead of a Republican state representative in the North Texas area who has filed a bill in the legislature to increase the state's share of spending to get it back up to 50-50. We're going to make sure that we fund this and meet you all halfway. You're not looking for a handout. You're not looking for a savior. Let's go back in history again. 1936, then Congressman, before he was a senator, before he was the first Texas president, Congressman Lyndon Baines Johnson works with President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and says, you know, there are communities in this state, Mr. President, like Clarksville. There are communities like Silverton, Pampa, Shamrock. There are communities like Quanah that don't have electricity because for these electricity companies to extend the wires out to these communities, it's just too darn expensive. They won't make any profit, so they're not doing it. Our farmers cannot get what they grow to market. Our cattle ranchers cannot get what they raise to the slaughterhouse. They cannot work by electric light. They don't have the same resources that we need. And our kids in our local schools aren't able to do homework like the kids in Dallas or London or Tokyo or anywhere else around the world. So our government decided that we would meet you halfway. You form a cooperative in your community. We will make sure that we meet half the cost to extend electricity to make sure that you can read by light the night before that homework is due or that exam is going to be given in your classroom, and you're just as competitive, you need just as much as any kid in any other part of the state. Well, we have an opportunity to build on that partnership that we formed back in the 1930s through broadband internet right now. My understanding is in Clarksville proper, in this room that we're in this community, not too hard to get online. You get 6 or 7 miles outside of the city limits. It's a totally different matter altogether. Can you start a small business? Can you finish your education? Can you find a date tonight if you're single, if you cannot get online in 2022? You probably can. Why is it that I can take that for granted in El Paso, or in Austin, or in Dallas, or in Houston, or in San Antonio, but we can't take it for granted in every part of Red River County? In fact, our current governor has vetoed the Universal Service Fund, which subsidizes rural telephone and internet bills in this community. You've seen your bills go up to be able to use the phone to get online. If you're lucky enough to be able to get online, go up $25 to $100 a month. We've got a governor who is not fighting for us, who's not looking out for us, who's not standing up for our rural hospitals. 16 of them have closed down on his watch since he was first sworn in as a governor of this state. Your bills are going through the roof. He's the largest driver of inflation in our communities in this state right now. And he's not standing up for you by literally being here right now to listen to you. I'm telling you, I am here. And I will return as your governor to be held accountable by you, to make sure that we're supporting public schools through our public school educators, that we're having the backs of our veterans, by making sure that we end veterans' homelessness in this state, connect more veterans with the care that they need, and reduce veterans' suicide. If we can tell us they don't want to be prescribed an opioid at the VA, and they wish they had an alternative in the state of Texas, that we legalize cannabis so that you can buy it without having to go to jail. We need a governor, as Patty said, who's going to fight to make sure that every woman makes her own decisions about her own body, her own future, her own health care. That this attack on members of the LGBTQ community in the state of Texas is met with the resolve of every single one of us who recognize this is a big state. It is big enough for all of us, for our dreams, for the hard work we're willing to put in order to realize them, and that hope that Patty talked about. And we're not down with a don't say gay bill that's being proposed for the next session. We're not down with hunting down parents of transgender kids and accusing them of child abuse and putting those kids in the foster care system. For that matter, we're not down with the foster care system with 32,000 kids in it. That is the worst run in the United States of America today. 100 kids have lost their lives since the year 2020. In this system, in this state. We've got to do better by and for all of us. That is what this campaign is about. There will be things that we disagree on. No two people will ever agree on everything all the time. But let us allow them to have the division, to have the hatred, to have the fear, to have the defining us by our differences. Allow us to decide that we're going to come together for world-class schools, for great jobs that we want right here in this community, for Medicaid expansion, bringing $10 billion in to stand these hospitals back up and make sure we don't have to drive to different Texas in order to see a variety. Let's come together, unify, and do the great things that we are truly capable of, as long as we have leadership that reflects all of us. And when I say all of us, I mean all of us. Last thing that I want to say, and then we're going to turn this mic over to you. Some of what I just described, some of what Patty just talked about earlier, can get us down. These are some dark days in the state of Texas. The polarization that we have right now, the division, the inability to make progress on these seemingly simple issues, like making sure that we have great schools, it can cause you to want to give up. The other side of this is that there's been no time like this one, where everything that we care about is on the line, is under attack unlike any time in our lifetime, including our democracy and the right to vote. And we are so lucky to be alive and to live and vote in the state of Texas at this moment. To few generations, all the opportunity to be there for their state and their country when their state and their country need it the most. You go back to the founding of this country and those brave souls who were willing to stand up against an empire that was standing against them. You think about those who were willing to defend this country against a confederacy that wanted to keep people enslaved and in bondage. You think about those who marched in the civil rights and voting rights movement and secured the expansion of this democracy. You think about every man and every woman who wore the uniform in the 1940s to fight fascism half the world away to defend democracy right here at home. The battle lines are drawn at this moment. It calls for each of us to do all we can with what we have, where we are. That's where we find ourselves at this moment and at this place in Gainesville. It's an honor to be with you. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Let us go out there and win this election. And when I say Gainesville, I mean Clarksville. Thank you all. We've got another microphone right here, and Cynthia's going to bring it around.
Yeah, if you have a question, just raise your hand and I will make my way around. I'll come right back to you. I'll make my way around the room and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. I just ask that you just ask one question per person so that we can get to as many people as we can.
I want you to rectify the statement you made a long time ago about taking all the guns. I'm a veteran, and I know some of these guns are not needed, but you said you're going to take all the guns, so that's an automatic thing for us as veterans. So will you verify, at least tell us, we don't need to listen to the radio to find out what you're saying. We need to listen to you.
I like that. Thank you for serving this country. Thanks for being here today. Listen, we're Texans. We understand this issue perhaps better than any people in any other state. Like many of you, I grew up with firearms in the household. My Uncle Raymond was a sheriff's deputy, the one who taught me and my sisters how to shoot, but also taught us the responsibility of owning that firearm, making sure we didn't hurt ourselves or hurt anybody else. That's a tradition that almost everyone in this room has been a part of, one that we're proud of, one that we've passed on to our 3 kids in El Paso. What we have today, where an 18-year-old can buy an AR-15, which was originally designed for use in combat, to penetrate an enemy's battle helmet at 500 feet, to penetrate it and kill him. But that AR-15 with that high-impact, high-velocity round was used against kids, not with helmets, not at 500 feet, but with nothing on their heads, maybe a baseball cap at 5 feet, maybe even closer. That he bought not 1, but 2 AR-15s and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Makes no sense to me whatsoever. Even less sense after 23 people were slaughtered by someone with an AK-47 in El Paso in 2019. Listen, you don't need an AR-15 to defend yourself in home. You don't need one to hunt. The only real use for one is to kill people on a battlefield. That's really where we should keep it. So that's my opinion on AR-15s, AK-47s. But I'm in the business of change, making progress, and doing better for Texas. I'm not here to stand on principle. I'm not here to only tell you what my ideal is. I'm here to get something done. I'm going to find the common ground. And that common ground means that instead of banning the sale of AR-15s and AK-47s and making sure we don't have them in civilian use anymore, instead, we at least raise the age to 21. I can get behind that. I can sign that bill. If it means that we have universal background checks. We have background checks at gun stores, but we don't have background checks right now in private sales. So the shooter in Midland, Odessa, who killed 8 people, couldn't pass a background check at a gun store in that community. He went to a private seller, bought the same firearm, that AR-15, and used it to kill 8 people. There, a universal background check may have saved the day. I can sign that. I can sign a red flag law that says, listen, if you have a firearm in the house and you're threatening to kill yourself, or to kill somebody else, or to take that into your school or into your workplace, or to kill your girlfriend or your wife or your husband or your boyfriend, we're going to intervene before it is too late through due process and return that firearm to the household after we realize that all of the concerns have been resolved. That will not stop every instance of gun violence in this state, but it will sharply reduce the number of times that we go up against this kind of firepower and lose our kids, lose our moms and our dads, lose our fellow Texans. That's the right way for us to move forward. What Abbott has done by turning his back on law enforcement, who begged him not to sign permitless carry into law, which took a license to carry program. We used to have a background check and vetting and training in order to be able to carry a gun in public. He turned his back on all that and said, now anyone is free to carry a gun in public without that background check, without that vetting, without that training. More cops have been gunned down in this state now than any other state. We've seen a predictable rise in gun violence in the state of Texas. Not only will I fully fund law enforcement and their training and making sure that they're held accountable to the highest standard, I'm also going to listen to them when they give us ideas on how to reduce gun violence in our state and in our communities. Thank you for asking the question. We're going to defend the Second Amendment and protect the lives of our fellow Texans.
I had a question about families, working on families with disability children, that we got backlogged on wheelchairs. As you can see, I even have a wheelchair. I ordered it, but when I'll get it, the backlog. Is there a plan to help special needs children?
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing the child here. Thank you for having the courage to make sure that we all understand this. It's not a statistic, it's not a number, it's a person. And we're getting to meet them right now here in this room, and we all care about them. And we right by and for your child and for your family. We're dead last in the nation right now in state-supported services for families who have a child that's medically complex or has disabilities, including intellectual disabilities. Something that my family and my mom found out when my sister Erin, who has significant disabilities, was in special education every day of every school year, graduated from high school, and we found we were on an 18-year wait list for state-supported services. And my mom said, why didn't you tell us that 18 years ago? We would have gotten on the list. The fact that we treat the most vulnerable in this fashion, and again, not for lack of resources. We have all the resources in the world. Why are we not directing them at the people who can most benefit from them? And it's not just so that they can do better. It's so that all of us can do better. When every person is able to live to their full potential, to fulfill their promise, to complete their education, to seek a job, to create more jobs by starting a small business perhaps down the road, all of us have a lighter burden to carry as a result. This is an investment that as governor I will make. It will include Medicaid expansion. It will include extending the waivers that we have for Medicaid and Medicare right now. It includes reducing the wait list from 18 years to under a year. One quick story. We were knocking on doors. Cynthia was in Bowie yesterday. And we were in Whitesboro. We were in Bowie as well, knocking on doors. And I met a man who has an adult disabled child. And I was sharing that story about my mom waiting 18 years to get my sister Erin on state-supported services. And he said, you know what, we lived in Colorado prior to living in Texas. It was 18 years there as well. Then Colorado legalized marijuana. They used the tax receipts from taxing its controlled sale to fund state-supported services. The wait time in that state is now under a year. So we have the resources in the state to get those. Thank you for asking.
Stacy from Tyler.
Hey, Stacy, good to see you. Where are the boots? Oh, yeah, see the boots. Yep.
We left plenty of room for you to write governor in front of that name.
I signed Stacy's boots back in 2017 or 2018.
Yeah. I forced him. I'm like, here's the Sharpie and here's my boot. He could not say no. Anyway, this isn't a very popular subject, but I believe in the right to die. What do you believe in that?
Thanks for being here, Stacy. Let me put this in context with the rights that are being taken away or infringed right now in this state. You know, the right to freely and fairly choose the person who's going to represent you, right? Hardest state in the nation in which to vote or to register to vote. The right to make your own decisions about your own body, especially if you're a woman. There's no exception for rape or incest, and the abortion ban begins at conception in Texas right now. They're talking about checking your travel documents if you're of childbearing age and you're trying to cross our open border in Oklahoma or any of our other border states. The right to marry
the person of your dreams that you're in love with. You know, marriage equality, perhaps we took that for granted. The Supreme Court, at least Justice Clarence Thomas says, they're coming for that next. And guess which state is probably going to lead the way in attacking the ability to marry the person of your dreams? Stacey's asking about the right to make your own end-of-life decisions. This is a difficult thing for us to talk about. And yet, I want to make sure in a freedom-loving, liberty-cherishing state like ours that we, whenever possible, defer to people to make their own decisions for themselves. Listen, if it hurts one of us, if it endangers my family or my community, then I think there's a vested interest in the state in intervening. If this is a personal decision for yourself about your life, I'm much more inclined to try to find a way to defer to you and to make sure that that right is protected in the state of Texas. So it's a complex issue. It's one granted that I should learn more about and listen to more people on to give you a more intelligent answer. But just sharing with you my approach and my attitude on that, that's where I come down. And so Stacey, I'd love to stay in touch with you on it.
Well, I knew you would approve or know that it was a right, as any right is. But I have to travel to Oregon or one of the other 7 states in order for the right to die when I choose to. And I don't want to do that. I want to be able to stay in my home state.
Stacey, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. The 2 topics that I hear being discussed mostly are inflation and immigration. I realize that this country was built by immigrants. I think I know your position on immigration. But I want your comment about what Secretary Mayorkas said, I believe it was last week in Colorado, when he made the statement that our border is secure. And he made that statement while there have been almost 1.8 million illegal immigrants come into this country this past year, and 56 of them have been arrested off the FBI terrorist watch list. I just want to know if you agree with Secretary Mayorkas that our border is secure, and if you disagree with that, what is your plan as governor of Texas to deal with our southern border?
Thank you, sir, for being here. And I didn't hear that comment that the Secretary made. I will take your word for it. That's not what I'm seeing, and that's not what I'm hearing as I travel the Texas-Mexico border. As you probably know, I live in El Paso, one of the defining border communities, which with Ciudad Juarez has more than 2.5 million people there. It is one of the safest cities in America. And I would argue safe, not in spite of, but because of the immigrants who call that community home. But when I go to Del Rio, when I go to Eagle Pass, when I meet ranchers, when I meet folks who have homes in those communities, they say, hey Beto, last night, 2 a.m., 12 people came through my backyard. I don't know who they were. Maybe they came here to work. Maybe they're trying to claim asylum. But that concerns me and it scares my family. Wouldn't it concern and scare you? And I say, I have to agree with you. You got to do better. Here's how I would address that issue. 1, we don't need stunts because it makes it harder for us to solve the legitimate problems we have. So, putting migrants on the bus, sending them to DC at taxpayers' rates, building the wall. We've had walls going all the way back to the George W. Bush administration. They have not produced the demand, the inflow coming to this country. Involuntarily activating 10,000 members of the Guard here in Texas who have but a week to tell their families, their jobs, their employers, their community goodbye for a year-long deployment on the border. That hasn't improved things either. We've lost the lives of 8 of them so far. 4 of them have taken their lives. 4 of them have died in questionable circumstances. None of them, by the way, killed by immigrants or anybody coming over the border. If those are stunts, the gentleman asks, then what are the solutions? So let's break this problem down. On the one side, you have people who want to come here to work. They want to come here to join families. They want to come here because they have literally no ability to return to their home country without perhaps losing their life or the lives of their children. On the other side, as the gentleman points out, there are people who want to come here to traffic drugs that will kill us, to traffic in human beings, and potentially even to attack this country and do us harm.
On that first side, the job seekers, the people who want to unify with family, the people fleeing persecution, that is the vast majority of people trying to enter this country. Well over 95, 96%. So let's have a solution for them so that we can deal with those who want to do us harm. Here are the solutions. A Texas-based guest worker program that ensures that there's a legal, orderly, safe path if you want to come here to work. Every cotton gin owner I have met in this state says they cannot find a single person who lives in the community where that cotton gin is located to work a single of the jobs in that cotton gin. It is immigrants coming from other countries to not do it. The cotton growers, the ranchers, the farmers, the restaurant owners, the roofers, you name a tough job in Texas, and there's a decent chance we will find an immigrant working that job. Let's make sure that we work with those employers, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, and Republicans in the legislature as well as Democrats in that body, to devise a guest worker program on our terms. If you want to join family who live right here in Clarksville, not Gainesville, but Clarksville. If you want to join family here and you live in Mexico right now, your wait time to legally immigrate, the back of the line stretches 20 years today. Few people are going to wait that long. It doesn't justify breaking the law. By the way, they're doing that. So let's acknowledge that, reduce those wait times, lift the per country cap, make it easier for you to legally and orderly and safely join your family here. You're seeking asylum? The same. If we adjudicate your asylum request and it's legitimate, you stay here. If we adjudicate your asylum request and you do not pass the bar, I'm sorry, but you're going back to your home country because that is the law of the land, okay? That's one side. That takes care of 96% of the flow coming into this country. We are now able to focus like a laser on those who come here to do us harm, to bring drugs, to hurt us, to traffic in human beings. That's what we need to be doing. We have not had immigration reform in this state or in this country since Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States. I'm going to make sure as governor that we lead the way, not just for Texas, but for this country on this critically important issue. Thank you, sir, for asking the question here today.
Yes, I have been in this state for 20 years now. I just moved to the country from Dallas 2 years ago, and this is the first time I've been around as many. This is the first time I've been around as many like-minded people as I'm disappointed, and I'd like for you to address this in the fact that there are so few black faces here. This is largely a black community. My daughter is married to a man from this community, and when I do my voter registration, I'm coming to Clarksville. And tell us, what can we do?
Help me out. I don't know this community as well as you do. And the constructive criticism and feedback is excellent. It's what I need to hear. Hey, Beto, this doesn't look like the community right now. You got to do better. Help me find out where I need to go. It's not just a matter of coming to people coming to where I am, which I'm so grateful that you all did. It's also a matter of me going to where people are. And so, Cynthia, I don't know, we don't have to be in Texarkana until 5:30, and this is where Cynthia starts shooting daggers at me from across the room. But we may have a little bit of time, and what she's going to do is, while I answer the next question, she's going to listen to you about where we might be able to go after this meeting, and go find some people who should be in the room, who I should be listening to right now, but who aren't. So I'm going to go find them with your help or the help of anybody else who's here. And again, want to triple, underline, and reiterate, it does not matter to me if they're Republicans, it does not matter to me if they're Democrats. All that I care is that they live in this community and have a chance to listen and learn from them. Right, Ms. Connell?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I have a quick comment to this gentleman right here. First of all, thank you for your service. I too am a veteran. I also have allergies, and I know when I go to buy Sudafed, I can't go to one pharmacy one day and buy Sudafed and go to the pharmacy the next day and buy Sudafed because it throws up a red flag. And there's no reason why me as a gun owner can be watched with red flag laws the same way. We do a simple allergy medicine. So I support guns, but I also support the red flag laws. that you speak of. And I just want to
Thank you so much. Thank you for your service. Thank you. And Ms. Connell.
Please can I weigh in here? Sorry if I bumped anybody.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for coming out. As you said, I can't remember seeing anyone coming to talk to us. Now, I have fought with you on TV. Hard. I have to take a break. So first I have to ask, are you not aware that there's an easier career path? But thank you so much for all that you do and the energy you have. My question is, we talked about the problems with ERCOT, and right after all of that emergency, we heard about infrastructure and grid and all of this, and we heard a lot about people resigning from the board when we didn't have anything to do with Texas. But we heard a lot of somebody, anybody, and nobody. And to date, I have yet to hear, based on all of these great projections for businesses moving into Texas and the population growing, as to what is the true solution to being able to include those people. Because right now, we are still at the mercy of, if it gets hot on an afternoon, I'm subject not to be able to do laundry, I got unplugged coffee pots, my clocks are always off. So who is the somebody? What's being done? Because if we bring in more population, more business, and we're still on this same grid, it ain't gonna work.
Great questions here. So just to add to this, not only have our bills gone up because the grid failed on the governor's watch after he was warned repeatedly about the vulnerabilities and did nothing. Not only did he set the price of fuel in this state when we were freezing in our homes at 200 times the going rate, meaning that his biggest donors, the pipeline companies, the energy traders, they made $11 billion over the course of 5 days, probably the largest transfer of wealth in Texas history. They stole that money from you. They stole that money from every single one of us. We are now, when it gets hot in the state of Texas, we're asking you through these conservation notices to set your thermostat to 78 degrees. Here it feels like we may have set it to 85 degrees, but that's what it feels like. And then check this out. If you all have not seen this, please hear me out. The state of Texas, that is you and me, are now paying some of the largest employers in the state to cut production and reduce the number of shifts so that we don't have as much demand on the grid. Toyota, that makes the Tundra that I just drove here in San Antonio, they're cutting their third shift at their factory in San Antonio, citing the fact that the grid is not reliable and there's too much demand on it already. So what are we going to do to make sure that when the temperature's high, you can run your air, when the temperature's low, you can count on the heat, you never have to worry about the power in the energy capital of Texas. 3 things that I will do with you, for you as governor. Number 1, we are going to weatherize and winterize the grid. In February of last year, gas literally froze at the wellhead. Now it gets a lot colder in other parts of this state and the world. They don't have the same problems because they've invested in weatherization and winterization. We're going to make sure that those people making so much profit off of all of us invest in their infrastructure so we don't have to worry about it. 2, we're going to make sure that we connect ERCOT to the national grid so that when we need electricity, we can drop down. When we're generating a surplus, we can sell it right back up. And 3rd, that $11 billion, it's not a figure of speech to say that it was stolen from you, it was stolen from us. There's literally a state statute that says, in times of crisis or emergency or declared disaster, you cannot price gouge our fellow Texans. And specifically cited in that statute is fuel. To charge 200 times the going rate, to force utilities into bankruptcy, and causing them to spend billions of dollars more than they were originally intending to do in the budget, means that the cost got passed on to each and every single one of us. As governor, I'm going to fight those big corporations, those pipeline companies, those energy traders, get our $11 billion back, return it to you, and try to bring your utility bills down in the state of Texas. That's how we ensure we have a reliable grid we can count on. That's how we get some justice and accountability. And that's how we ensure we do the right thing for all of us, no matter where we live? Thanks for asking.
Okay, I'm back here, and right before we ask, we have our two last questions right here. Want to, number one, give a shout out to the amazing staff here at the restaurant. So hard.
Thank you so much for having us out.
And then I want to recognize the former party chair, former SDEC member, and former district director for Congressman Max Sandlin. We have Leonard Rockwell. He's back here. Leonard, here he is.
Thank you, Mr. Rockwell.
We are teachers, and my question is concerning safety. Schools seem to be the ones making all the adjustments when there's a school shooter. We build fences, we have active shooting drills, we hide in closets, we learn to jump out windows quicker, we time ourselves. When is it going to be time for the law to change?
Thank you. You already sacrificed so much. I mentioned earlier that school teachers in Texas on average are working a second or a third job to make ends meet. Even though they're not getting paid enough to just have that one job, very often out of your own pocket, you're decorating the classroom for the first day of school. Out of your own pocket, you're paying for that third meal when the kid's on free and reduced breakfast and lunch, and you know she doesn't have a warm meal to go home to, calories to burn while she's doing that homework you assigned. You'll pay for that. A new set of clothes for the kid who shows up in the same pair of dirty jeans and dirty t-shirt Monday through Friday. Maybe over the weekend you buy a new set of clothes so he can hold his head high and have some dignity while he learns right next to the other kids in that classroom. Everything that you do, we now ask you to contemplate sacrificing your life for those kids for whom you've already sacrificed so much. Now that's not on you, that is on all of us until we change this and make sure that the only thing you're worried about is drawing forth that kid's curiosity, making sure that they're so excited to learn and fulfill their potential, that they believe in themselves, that they have the confidence in who they are. That's what I got out of great public schools and great public school educators. So look, when I meet teachers who tell me that their own kids ask, hey mom, are you going to die for those kids in your classroom? Are you going to try to save your life and come home to us? When I meet the parents who say that my child knows which one of those crank run windows is stuck and which ones will open, he's identified the ones that will open, those are the ones he's going out of. He's not hiding in a closet because that's probably where they're going to take his life. He's not going to hide under his desk. That's not going to do a single thing for him. He's getting the hell out of that school. That our kids, and I've got 3 of them in the public schools that start on Monday, that our kids think that right now. What do they think about us? And what is their judgment at the end of the day? When they look back on this moment in 2022, and they say, yes, we have the Second Amendment, and yes, we should have these firearms, and no one should infringe on that right, but yes, kids are getting slaughtered in their own classrooms right now. 19 of them shot at point-blank range more than 8 weeks ago, and nothing in this state has changed to protect these 2 educators or their kids before the first day of school. Were I governor, I would have called a special session. On that special session agenda, I'd say, listen, Republicans, Democrats, put anything on here that you want in order to improve the safety in our schools. Governor Abbott talked about mental health care. I love it. He took $211 million out of the state's mental health care budget the month before Uvalde. We're 51st in the nation. Let's fund that to the hills until we're number 1. Is it the infrastructure of the school? Is it making sure those doors are locked? Do we have better perimeter fencing? Or when local school districts say they need an armed guard on their campus, let's listen to them, let's partner with them. They know their schools, their kids, their community better than any of us from the outside ever will. Let's do that as well. But then when people say, hey, it makes no sense that an 18-year-old can buy 2 of these AR-15s and hundreds of rounds of ammunition, at a minimum, folks, let's raise the age, let's make sure there's a universal background check, let's have some safe storage laws, so if you have a young person in the house and you have firearms, keep them locked up so they can't get their hands on them. We can agree on these things. We can make progress. Gun owners, non-gun owners, Republicans, Democrats, independents alike, Texans doing better for Texans. So I have got your back. I will fight for you now as your fellow Texan. I will deliver for you as your governor. I'm so grateful for your public service and what you're doing for the kids in this community. Thank you for being here. Grateful to you.
From the Clarksville City Council, we've got Pat Smith. And Travion Scott. And we've got Miss Humphreys.
All right, thank you so much. And here is going to be our very last question, right over here.
Yes, sir. I'm Raylan Musgrove, and I'm from Detroit, Texas. And my question is, what do you think about Texas FFA, and how can you support it more?
Listen, communities like this, like the one that you live in, produce the food. When I'm in West Texas in the Panhandle, the fiber. When I'm in the Permian Basin, the fuel. And also in North Texas, that drives this economy. We have a government and a governor right now that's sleeping on this part of the state. Thinks your votes are in the bank, doesn't have to fight for them, doesn't have to earn them, does not have to deliver them. As I listen to the raisers and the growers, the farmers and the ranchers of this community, they feel like they're getting left behind. The inputs to raise cattle in Texas, whether it's fertilizer, whether it's feed, whether it's gasoline, whether it's fuel, are going through the roof. When you find yourself at the mercy of corporate slaughterhouses that are crushing you on the margins, it's very hard to pass on these farms and ranches to the next generation. So, I want to have your back. I want to make sure that we support more of these independent slaughterhouses, for example. We extend the ag exemption. We make sure if there are other ways to subsidize what we so depend on, that we as a state of Texas do that, and that also includes how we do this through public education. These FFA programs throughout the state, including in my hometown of El Paso, are growing and training the next generation of farmers and ranchers, and those who are going to make sure that we are independent, self-reliant, and producing so much of what this state and our country's economy literally runs on. So I would love to learn more from you. Cynthia is going to make sure that I get your contact information to see how we can better support FFA. I just want you to know that what you're doing is so important to the future of this state, and I'll fight to make sure that we do a better job. Thank you for coming out here today.
So, Miss Bonnie Snyder from City Council, where are you? We want to give you a shout out too. Thank you so much for being here. Bonnie Snyder. And then we have one more announcement.
Hey.
My name is Jackie Cunningham, and I'm actually from Paris, but my people are from Red River County. My daddy was born at home in Negley, just up here. My mama was born at home in town. And I grew up in a Texas that I miss, and it's because of the communities like this, and the things I don't understand. And you address a lot of those. Because mostly it was just live and let live. Because everybody in here knows y'all got that family member. Y'all got that family member. You can't hate anybody. Just come together and try to do the best for everybody. And you represent that. And I've liked you for a long time and all that. And I don't like to hate anybody. I'm also a mama. And I've got 6 kids. And I got to choose each one of them. And I have 4 daughters. And they have the right to make their own decisions too. Does to a short person, they might not need to go through all this. And because of that, me, for my girls, and for my hope in the Texas that I grew up in, because y'all, in my mind, it's still blue. I'm just going to blank out. Thank you for standing up for us.
Thank you so much. That was incredibly kind. This check, this donation, means the world to us, that it comes from you, that it comes from this community. It has quite a few zeros on it. I promise you we'll use this to support our organizers, our volunteers we're going to ask to sign up in this community, to knock on doors, to meet those voters, Republican, Democrat, and Independent, where they are, invite them into this election, into this democracy, to support the very values that you grew up with, that you're defending and fighting for right now. This hope that
Patty was talking about make it possible through our hard work. I am so grateful to you all. Listen, last thing that I want to say. Do we have another question? Last thing that I want to say is, and I promise you I'd be very happy to, and you know what, she's had her hand up, I'll make sure that we answer this question. Let me make this announcement and I'll answer your question. You got it. This check is one of more than 500,000 individual contributions we received over the last 4 months. The largest group of donors to this campaign have been teachers. We outraised the sitting governor of the state of Texas by nearly $3 million. The polls have us closing in. Volunteers are up over 80,000 so far. The momentum that I feel on this campaign, this is not only possible, we are going to do it. It's going to take every single one of us doing all we can. So thank you for showing us the way and being a leader here in this community. So grateful to you. Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
From the inside, the teachers in the valley have to step into the hall to lock her classroom door. Fix it.
Yes, ma'am. We will do that. There has to be justice, there has to be accountability, there have to be lessons learned. And that includes locking those doors in all of our schools and learning from what happened and what didn't happen in Uvalde. Thank you for saying that. Thanks for making sure that we're still fighting for those families till we get this done. Listen, Clarksville, I want to thank you for coming out today in such great numbers. For the warm, and I mean really warm welcome that you provided for us today. I want to thank our hosts at this extraordinary restaurant. If you have not yet ordered a meal here, please do. Tip your server generously. We're all ordering lunch in our campaign from this establishment, and we're going to follow your lead and go to the part of town that we need to be in, right, Ms. Conn? We're going to figure it out. She says, thank you all. We'll hang out for a little while to say hi. We will take a group picture as we've been doing every event so far, so I'm going to sit right here. If you want to stay where you are, Cynthia's going to take a picture.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. To squeeze in, if you would like to join this picture. Come right in the center, squeeze in.
Gonna slide
down
right
if you have a chair, so that
Sorry.
you're not covering the folks behind you. Folks on the end, if you'd like to join, squeeze in. There's plenty of room in the back. Everybody ready? All right, we're going to say Clarksville on the count of 3.
Cynthia, with some emotion here.
Yes, I'm going to add a lot of motion. Everybody's moving around. Nurses for Beto sign, come on in.
Do you need a chair?
You know what? I think I'm okay. I think I can get it because I'm already elevated here. Oh, I like that Beto head right over there. Somebody has a Beto head. It's nice. Here we go.
I think they want to say governor
All
on
right,
3.
we're going to do governor. You guys
You gotta say it out loud. So
ready? Here we go. Everybody ready? Hold on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, governor!